in the quaint village of Laconia, nestled at the foothills of the mystical Pelion Mountains in Greece. I always felt like an outsider. I have always been enthralled by the legends and myths swirling around my homeland. Despite the villagers' warnings, I found myself irresistibly drawn to the dense forest that bordered our village, known locally as the Forest of Whispers. According to legend, it was home to creatures half man, half beast, guardians of ancient secrets. One crisp autumn morning, I ventured deeper into the forest than ever before. The canopy of amber and gold, interwoven with streaks of sunlight, created a surreal, almost hypnotic landscape. I barely noticed the odd silence that had fallen over the woods. The birds seemed to have ceased their songs. As the sun began to dip lower, casting elongated shadows, I stumbled upon ancient ruins, overgrown and forgotten. Intrigued, I explored the crumbling stones. Little did I know, eyes watched me from the dense foliage. It was there, among echoes of a fallen civilization, that I found it. An intricately carved stone relief depicting a fierce centaur, bow at the ready, as if frozen in time. Compelled to touch it, I ran my fingers over the cold stone, feeling the intricate carvings. A sudden gust of wind whipped through the ruins, and a low, guttural sound reverberated through the forest. Startled, I spun around, my heart racing. There, at the edge of the clearing, stood a creature of myth, a centaur. Its eyes burned with an intelligence and fury that sent a chill down my spine. The centaur's gaze was fixed upon me, its nostrils flaring as if it could smell my fear. Without warning, it let out a thunderous neigh and charged. Fueled by primal fear, I turned and fled into the forest. The pounding of hooves behind me was a constant reminder of the nightmare that had come to life. As I ran, the forest seemed to close in around me. Branches snagged at my clothes, roots tripped my feet, and the once familiar paths twisted into unfamiliar mazes. The line between reality and myth blurred, and the forest seemed to resonate with the centaur's fury. I realized with growing horror that this was no ordinary chase. It was as if the creature was herding me, driving me deeper into the ancient woods, away from the safety of the village. The centaur was not merely a beast, it was a guardian of the forest, a protector of its secrets, and I had trespassed into its sacred domain. Exhausted, my lungs burning, I stumbled into a clearing. The full moon bathed the forest in a ghostly glow, casting eerie shadows. I could hear the centaur's breath, feel its presence closing in. With nowhere left to run, I turned to face my pursuer, my back against an ancient tree. The centaur slowed to a menacing trot, its eyes glinting in the moonlight. It was then that I understood. This was not just a chase, it was a hunt. And I was the prey. As the creature prepared to strike, I braced myself for a confrontation that would blur the line between man and myth, between life and the legends of the Pelion Mountains. As the moon climbed higher, bathing the clearing in its pale light, I braced myself against the gnarled tree. The centaur circled me, a predator toying with its prey. Its breath was a ragged hiss in the cool night air, and its eyes glowed like embers from a forgotten fire. I could smell the earthy musk of the creature, mixed with the scent of pine and decay. Suddenly, the forest erupted with whispers, as if the trees themselves were speaking in hushed tones, narrating my impending doom. The centaur's hooves pounded the ground rhythmically, a dance of death, each step resonating through my bones. In a flash of movement, the centaur lunged. Acting on instinct, I dodged to the side, feeling the rush of air as the creature's massive body passed by. The centaur wheeled around, its movements unnaturally swift, baring its teeth in a grotesque sneer. My heart pounded in my ears as I realized I was not just fighting for my life. I was part of an ancient ritual, a sacrificial chase ordained by the gods of old. The forest, once a place of beauty, now twisted into a macabre arena. Shadows seemed to stretch and contort, turning into spectral figures that whispered of my impending doom. The centaur charged again, its eyes filled with a malevolent intelligence. I could see the fury of centuries etched into its features. the anger of a creature bound to protect a realm that had long been forgotten by man. With nowhere to run, I scrambled up the tree, clawing at the bark, desperate for any escape. The centaur, enraged, struck the tree with its hooves, each blow shaking the ancient timber. I clung on for dear life, my fingers bleeding as the tree swayed violently. In the chaos, a low growl echoed through the forest, a sound more terrifying than any human or animal could produce. The ground beneath us trembled, and the air grew heavy with a sense of dread. From the shadows emerged figures, neither human nor beast, but grotesque amalgamations of both. They encircled the clearing, their eyes glowing with the same fiery intensity as the centaurs. The forest had come alive, animated by a dark energy that fed on fear and despair. I, trapped between the vengeful centaur and the encroaching figures, realized the horrifying truth. The forest was not just a realm guarded by the centaur, but a living entity, a sentient being that lured and fed on the souls of the unwary. The centaur, sensing the presence of the otherworldly entities, turned its attention towards them, its neigh a war cry that shook the very air. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of fear in the creature's eyes, fear of something even it did not understand. In the midst of the nightmare, the forest itself seemed to warp and twist, the trees bending unnaturally, their branches reaching out like the fingers of the damned. The ground split open, revealing gaping maws filled with darkness, as if the underworld itself was claiming the forest. I was overcome with terror. I felt my mind slipping. The world spun around me, a maelstrom of horror and madness. I could hear the whispers growing louder, a chorus of the damned, recounting tales of those who had fallen prey to the forest's curse. As the centaur and the shadowy figures clashed in a battle as old as time, I understood that I was witnessing a war not just for my soul, but for the very essence of the forest. The line between reality and nightmare had blurred, and I was caught in the eye of a storm that had raged for millennia. With a final, desperate effort, I let go of the tree, plunging into the chaos below, where ancient powers battled under the watchful gaze of the moon. My scream was lost in the cacophony of the forest's wrath, a symphony of terror that echoed through the night. The ground rushed to meet me as I fell from the tree, a descent into madness. My body crashed into the forest floor, a sharp pain jolting through every nerve. Gasping for air, I staggered to my feet, my vision blurred by the agony of impact. The centaur and the shadowy beings were locked in a ferocious battle, their roars and cries a terrifying cacophony that filled the night. I stumbled away, my mind reeling from the surreal horror unfolding around me. The once familiar forest had morphed into a labyrinth of terror, with trees that seemed to move and shift, obstructing my path at every turn. The ground beneath me felt alive, undulating like the back of some giant beast. The air was thick with an oppressive dread, and every shadow seemed to conceal unspeakable horrors. I could hear the centaur's enraged screams and the eerie, otherworldly howls of the shadow beings, a haunting symphony that underscored my frantic escape. In my panicked flight, I stumbled upon a narrow, overgrown path. With no other option, I hurtled down it, branches whipping my face, leaving stinging welts. The path twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the heart of the forest. I dared not look back, fearing what might be pursuing me. Suddenly, the path opened into a small clearing, and there, in the center, stood an ancient stone well. Its presence was incongruous, a relic of a bygone era. I approached it, my breath ragged, and peered into its depths. A faint, eerie glow emanated from below, casting ghostly shadows on the moss-covered stones. As I gazed into the well, a chilling realization dawned on me. The well was not just a structure. It was a portal, a gateway to something ancient and malevolent that slumbered beneath the forest. The glow grew brighter, and a whispering voice called out from the depths, a siren song that beckoned me closer. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. The forest was no longer just a battleground, it was a nexus of ancient powers, and I was an intruder in a war that spanned eons. The centaur, the shadow beings, the well, they were all connected, pieces of a puzzle that was beyond my comprehension. With a renewed sense of urgency, I turned and fled from the clearing, the well's glow fading behind me. The forest seemed to sense my desperation, the trees groaning and swaying as if to block my path. I pushed through, driven by sheer willpower, my body screaming in protest. Then, through the trees, I saw it. A faint glimmer of moonlight that marked the edge of the forest. Salvation lay just beyond, the safety of the open fields in the village. I pushed myself harder, every step a battle against the forest's malevolent embrace. As I neared the forest's edge, a guttural roar shook the ground behind me. I dared not look back, fearing that the Centaur or something worse was mere steps behind. The trees thinned, and I burst out of the forest, collapsing onto the grassy field under the night sky. Lying there, panting and broken, I watched as the forest's edge seemed to writhe and shudder, as if angered by my escape. But I had made it. I had survived the creatures. The horrors I had witnessed would haunt me forever, a reminder of the ancient and unspeakable things that lurk in the shadows of our world. As I lay there, gazing at the stars, a profound sense of insignificance washed over me. I had glimpsed a world beyond my understanding, a world where myths and nightmares were terrifyingly real, and though I had escaped with my life, a part of me would always remain trapped in that forest.